So we got our hands on this incredibly detailed Chinese astrological report about Elon Musk, and wow, it makes some pretty startling predictions. It's all based on a system called Bazi, or the Four Pillars of Destiny. Now, our goal here isn't to prove this stuff is real. It's to walk you through the absolutely wild story it tells, this cosmic blueprint it claims to have for one of the most powerful people on the planet.
The entire super complex analysis really just boils down to this one single line from the conclusion: a genius and destruction coexistence. I mean, that perfectly sets the stage, right? It's a story of incredible highs, but also potentially devastating lows. So the big question is, where in the world does a prediction like that even come from?
Well, it comes from this. This is Elon Musk's Bazi chart. And to an analyst, this isn't just a bunch of random symbols. It really is a blueprint. Every single character represents an element. Wood, fire, earth, metal, water. And the way they all interact is supposed to map out everything about a person: their personality, their talents, and the whole trajectory of their life. And for Musk, the central conflict is supposedly written right there in his core elements.
And that brings us to the main metaphor of this whole thing, the idea that really defines the entire conflict in his chart: a tree born in fire.
The analysis all starts with his Daymaster, which is kind of like his core self. And according to this chart, he is Jia Wood. So I want you to picture a giant, massive tree, one that's totally unyielding, super ambitious, and basically has the potential to touch the sky. This represents the genius part of that quote, that drive to build something truly monumental.
But here's the twist. Here's the tree's big dilemma. A giant tree like that needs a ton of water to survive, right? In this system, water isn't just water. It represents nourishment, deep thinking, and, super importantly, the flow of capital. The problem: the chart says Musk was born in a fire month, so fire is the #1 element in his environment. And yeah, it represents incredible drive and creativity, but it also brings aggression, exhaustion, and this constant threat of just being completely burned out, of the tree's resources being totally eaten up by the flames.
And this elemental war between the wood, the fire, and the water, it doesn't just stay on a piece of paper. The analysis argues it directly creates his famously dual-sided personality.
And these two sides, they literally come from the exact same source. So on the plus side, you've got the interaction between his wood self and the fire environment. This creates something called wood-fire brightness. That's the brilliant, visionary, articulate mind we all know. But that same combination also creates what's called a Shangguan personality. And that is the destructive side. Aggressive, paranoid, and just, prone to lashing out against any kind of rules or authority.
And we're not just talking about some abstract personality quirk here. The report is crystal clear about the real-world fallout. It specifically warrants that this fire nature is his biggest vulnerability, making him super prone to kicking off massive PR or legal nightmares, all from a single impulsive comment or decision. The same fire that fuels his genius could be the thing that sets his whole empire ablaze.
Okay, so if he's this thirsty tree stuck in a world of fire, how in the world did he become the wealthiest person on Earth? Well, the chart also points to two very powerful elemental allies that have apparently been fueling his success this whole time.
Those two lifelines are water and metal. Water, remember, is the element that feeds the tree. It represents the huge amounts of capital he's been able to attract and the deep thinking behind his technology. And then his second ally, metal, represents structure, discipline, heavy industry. Think rockets, think gigafactories. According to this analysis, these two elements are the absolute bedrock of his success.
And this is where the theory gets really interesting. The report pinpoints the 2 decades from about 2002 to 2021 as his golden era. This was a period when the cosmic cycles were supposedly dominated by those helpful water and metal elements. And when you look at his actual life, his major milestones line up perfectly. From the PayPal sale that gave him his seed, water, or capital, to the rise of his massive metal-based empires, Tesla and SpaceX, it all happened during this astrologically golden window. But, and this is a huge but, according to this report, that golden era is over. The cycles are shifting, and the analysis makes some shockingly specific predictions about a firestorm that it says is coming.
So what's the prediction? Well, the core of it is this. Those helpful water and metal elements that defined his rise, they're fading away, and in their place, that threatening fire element is about to come roaring back. The first alarm bells are set to ring in 2025. The report flags this year as a major risk warning.
It's a time when that fire energy starts to spike, creating a really hostile environment for his geowood self. The advice given for that year is to basically go on defense and avoid any big, risky financial moves.
But 2025 is just a prelude. The year 2026 is marked as a potential great calamity. The reason is that it's a double fire year, which supposedly cranks up that core threat in his chart to the absolute maximum. The report says this could be a moment of profound, even existential crisis for him personally or for one of his main companies.
And to show just how serious this is, the analyst uses this really stark 4-character phrase, mu hua cheng hui. It literally means wood turning to ash. This is the ultimate danger for his chart, the moment the fire completely and totally consumes the tree.
And after that potential crisis, 2027 is described as a year of just deep struggle. The image they use is of being stuck in the mud, a period of total stagnation where that life-giving water is gone and the tree, assuming it even survived the fire, is left incredibly weak and compromised.
Now, I know, that sounds incredibly bleak, like game over. But the report doesn't actually end in total disaster. It predicts that this whole crisis period is followed by a painful, but necessary, period of rebirth and restructuring. See, the key thing here is that wood turning to ash isn't a guarantee. According to the analysis, there is a path to survival, but it's a painful one. It's a rebirth that can only happen after going through a trial by fire.
The analysis actually sees the years from 2028 to 2030 as a recovery period. Why? Because that helpful metal element is predicted to return to his chart, and that provides the structure and the decisiveness he would need to rebuild a new foundation from what's left.
And the very nature of that metal element points to a very specific kind of recovery. See, metal cuts. It's cold, it's hard, it's logical. So the report predicts his path back will be through really tough, unsentimental business moves. We're talking hardline corporate restructuring, massive layoffs, and maybe even selling off or spinning out major assets just to make sure the core business survives.
Which, of course, brings us right back to the central metaphor that defines this entire analysis, the geowood tree, born in a month of fire. The report lays out this fascinating, incredibly dramatic story of genius and risk, of golden eras and coming firestorms. But in the end, whether you believe in Bazi or not, it leaves us all with one really compelling question. Will the tree survive the fire?